President Zelensky met with Pope Francis, and his main message to the Pope was speaking about the Ukrainians who are in Russian captivity.
Before we continue, we invite you to follow our channel, the only American show reporting live from Ukraine every day.
The Ukrainian President Zelenskyy is city-hopping across Europe to promote what he calls a victory plan. Meanwhile, Russian President Putin says he shares a very close worldview with his Iranian counterpart. Let's check in with Joseph Lindsley in Ukraine. And Joseph, that connection between Iran and Russia is something we've talked about, seems to be getting stronger now. And also the connection between what's going on in the Middle East and Iran. What are you hearing today?
Indeed, Bob. Hello from a rainy, chilly day here in Lviv. Firstly, the most intense connection between Russia and Iran that people in Ukraine feel is these pretty much nightly attacks now for the past 2 months in which Russia uses the Iranian-made Shahed drones, which they've been adapting and improving. They're getting quieter. They can move faster. There've even been reports that some of them have been powered with attached to Starlink satellite dishes so that they can, even when they cannot establish a connection, they can try to hit their targets. Ukrainians feel that connection very deeply. But meanwhile, today we see sort of the optics of the sense that Russia is not trying to hide its alliance with Iran. In the country of Turkmenistan, Putin met with the Iranian president, and I think we clearly see the alliance between those powers, even as the West, many nations in the West are trying to help Israel in its struggle against Iran. And I think as I talk with many. Well, actually, I don't talk with so many of these people anymore, but people I used to know and work with in Washington, throughout the United States, people that, work in the world of politics and defense, they speak very often about Israel, but they don't talk about Ukraine anymore. A lot of these people came here, Bob, to Ukraine in 2022 when it was a trending topic, including former senior employees of President Trump. And they don't come here now. They don't talk about this, and they only focus really on Israel. Which is strange to me because these are smart people with security clearances and they understand, I think, the complexity of world affairs, but they seem to miss it in this case. And whereas the enemies of freedom in the West are very happy and very publicly to meet with each other. So this is it's a strange thing for me to observe here. And another sort of geopolitical situation we have, President Zelensky met with Pope Francis, I think it was yesterday. And his main message to the Pope was speaking about the Ukrainians who are in Russian captivity, not just soldiers, but many children. Children from occupied places like that city of Mariupol. It's hard even to know exactly how many. I mean, some of them have relatives here, so you can account for those ones. But there's many more that's just hard to know how many kids actually have been taken and sort of removed to Russia, which has been a tradition of Russia going back to the Soviet days. And so that was the main message of President Zelensky. And it was fresh on his mind because it was also reported yesterday that a Ukrainian journalist, Victoria Roschina, she very bravely went to occupied territories, to places near Mariupol and in the Zaporizhia region. She very bravely went there. The Russians captured her. Some of her reporting, she was able to get to her compatriots at the newsrooms in Kyiv, but she died in Russian captivity. It was reported she died in September, but Russia just announced it yesterday. And she had been due to be. The plan was that she would be exchanged on one of the prisoner release deals, but unfortunately she died before that could happen. And so President Zelensky mentions this to the Pope. And I mentioned the other day that Pope Francis had named the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Bishop of Melbourne, 44-year-old bishop, as a cardinal. And many, the press and many people took this as good news, to recognize Ukraine, because normally the Pope would have picked the more senior Archbishop of Sydney. So it was a pretty dramatic move. But as you talk with Ukrainians, as I speak with Ukrainians, they're sort of mystified by it, because the leader of the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church is based in Kyiv. And this is a church that is part of the Roman Catholic Church, but they have their own style and traditions and since the 1600s. And Putin claims that this church is not legitimate at all. just in the same way that he says Ukraine, doesn't really exist as a nation. And what a strong move that would have been from the Pope to elevate the patriarch of the Greek Catholics in Kyiv as a cardinal. Indeed, that's happened many times. I mean, usually the patriarch in Kyiv is made a cardinal, going back to the 1600s. And in fact, there was a famous movie with Gregory Peck, I think, when he played the Catholic Archbishop of Ukraine, who became a cardinal and became Pope. And so it was strange that the Pope would choose to pick someone who's not in Ukraine, and that this upsets Ukrainians, because there has sometimes been from the Vatican, sort of this lack of clarity about which side is good and which side is, what is the side of good in this fight of Ukrainian resistance.
It was on this date in 1986 that the Reykjavik summit was going on in Iceland between President Reagan and Gorbachev. And, thinking about that, it wasn't that long ago, 1986. What has happened, with the relationship now between the United States and Russia, Joe?
Well, it's interesting. I was just checking in about an hour ago with our friends, the Cultural Forces, the soldier musicians making their way, dodging hurricanes, traveling through the southeastern U.S., and yesterday they played at a VFW in the Florida Panhandle, and this is exactly what they were talking about with the American veterans. There's the same exact topic and sort of mystified. And you think of the American leadership against the Ronald Reagan against the the evil empire, but now Russia's actions are much more evil to other nations than they were during the Cold War. It was one thing to oppress people as they did behind the Iron Curtain, but now they do it with ballistic missiles. So that was indeed the question of those cultural forces guys as they continue their journey. And I think it's something that we do need to seriously examine. But it's, this is, I think there was a time, Bob, certainly in the 90s, and this is sort of what I learned in school in the early 2000s, we're in a new era of peace and cooperation. And I think we're seeing you can never count on that.
No, never. Joseph Lindsley, I hope you have a peaceful weekend, Joe. Thank you.
And Bob, may I mention, it's Sunday, 8 o'clock in the morning, there will be a cheering section for the Roman Kasper, Ukrainian soldier who lost his leg to a landmine on 100 South Wacker Drive. If anyone wants to show up there about halfway through the marathon, 8 o'clock in the morning, to cheer this soldier on.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, and we'll follow up on that, too. And we certainly wish him the best. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you for introducing Ukraine on your social media pages. That's very important that much more people can get more information about the situation here and how everybody can help Ukraine to stay stronger and to save all the world.
Что он сказал?
Well, which side are you on?
На чьей ты стороне?
Come on now. Oh, which side are you on?
На чьей ты стороне?